pretty amazing because the New York Jets don't just stink. They suck. They're not good. And they are not a good football team, but we continue to talk about the New York Jets.
Seriously.
Off of a weekend where they scored 8 points. I, by the way, love it when teams score 8 and not 7 or 10.
Yeah.
It's just 8 is just, you get
You're
the
like,
safety.
what?
Yeah, it's just so odd. It's so weird. It's so fitting. The Jets can't find a quarterback. And then over the last 24, 36 hours, something has been brewing in the Big Apple. And this story just continues to rise to new levels. And if you've missed it, if you just got out from under the rock that you've been in over the last day and a half, there was a report that surfaced yesterday from The Athletic that said Jets quarterback Zach Wilson was reluctant to rejoin the starting lineup for fear of injury. That was from Diana Rossini. Now, Robert Saleh, the Jets head coach, said yesterday that if that was the case with Zach Wilson, he wouldn't be with the team.
Right. Kind of denying.
Sure.
it.
And that gives enough fodder for you and me to sit here and fight and say whether Zach Wilson is worthy enough of making that decision or if he's in his right mind in making that decision and if he's in the right place of making that decision. There's enough there for you and me to volley back and forth if we wanted to or ride the same train. There's enough there because we are actually talking about an NFL player maybe not wanting to play.
Right. Which you don't hear a lot about unless they're injured. And I'm here defending Zach Wilson for sure.
Yeah.
100%. The whole way.
You're on Team Zach Wilson.
I am team Zach Wilson, and it wasn't like I was a fan of his to start, but this whole season I have been rooting for him for various different reasons, and I'm still rooting for him now.
And you think that it's okay for him to say thanks, but no thanks?
I don't know if that's what I'm okay with.
Let somebody else go get crushed behind their
I
offensive
just
line.
understand if he's feeling this way, I understand why he's feeling that way. You have made it clear, the Jets have made it clear that he is not, quote unquote, my quarterback. The Jets have made that clear.
Have they?
Yes!
How have they made that clear?
Because
they have actually given him more chances than any bad quarterback in recent history of the NFL. Time and time again, they have stuck by Zach Wilson.
They did defend him, but I think at the start of the season, all Robert Saleh did was defend him. But what else are you going to do? I just think at this point, the blame has been put on him heavily, whether it's by fans, by the media. It is New York. I understand all that. Then you bench him, and I think that's where it's like, clearly you do not think he has what it takes. And then you put in Tim Boyle, and now you release him, and you're like, okay, maybe it wasn't you, Zach. Can you get back out there? Our bad. That's how I would look at it. I don't see why he would put himself out there again.
What about the simple fact that the New York Jets drafted him second overall, stuck by him his rookie season, another season. Aaron Rodgers comes in. Guess what? The whole narrative was once Aaron's done with this place, Zach is going to be in the program long enough, and then Zach can take these reins.
You know, being drafted number 2 has been bad for Zach Wilson because if he wasn't drafted at number 2, the expectation wouldn't be there. But nowadays, I feel like the NFL is doing this. You're drafting a young quarterback and expecting him to be ready. When back then, quarterbacks got to sit. How many years did Aaron Rodgers sit and watched? How many years did Tom Brady sit and watch? Now we're seeing these quarterbacks be thrown into basically the wolves and expecting them to do everything right off the bat instead of actually learning. And for him, just because he was the second overall pick, I think that's like come with this expectation, and we're not giving him any growing pains.
Him not wanting to start is a slap in the face to the Jets for a team that has made him their starting quarterback for 31 games of his career.
Okay, so
we're bordering on 2 full seasons of Zach Wilson, and I think we kind of get our sense of who Zach Wilson is. Like for how long it took them to go off of Zach Wilson this season was a long, long time, considering there was no different Zach Wilson, really, that we saw this season than we had the previous 2 seasons. There wasn't this great leap of Zach Wilson, yet they stick with him. He starts 9 games for them, ends up playing, taking over for Rodgers, practically plays in 10 games for him. They've done all that they can to stick by him.
Right, but is that more because they had no options?
No.
Or because they actually thought they didn't have any other option?
They could have kicked him to the curb when they brought in Aaron Rodgers.
They could have.
Yes.
Sure.
So that's what he owes the organization. By the way, they're also still signing his paychecks.
Okay.
They're not paying him to sit out. It's not part of the job description. And if he wants to worry about future earnings, then just ask for your release, get out of there, don't take any of the money and leave. But he owes it to them as their employer and by sticking by them to play in these games.
Listen, I feel like this situation in black and white, yes, you're getting paid, you should play. I don't think this is a black and white situation. I think this is very gray for what the New York Jets have gone through. That's why I'm on his side. How is this different from a player who sits out because they want more money?
This is different because they have stuck by him. They have made him the number 2 overall pick. They need him. What, you want another guy to go in there and get crushed?
But you already decided that he was the problem, and that's why you benched him. So stick with that.
They gave him so much rope. And then guess what? Tim Boyle didn't work out. Trevor Siemian. You know what? Maybe he was our better option.
Yeah, and maybe he wasn't the overall problem.
He's not. You're right about that.
He's not the overall problem.
He's not the overall problem. They've got problems on their offensive line, which made the Rodgers comeback over these last couple of weeks, the talk of it, ridiculous that you would want to play behind that offensive line. But to say that you're apprehensive for fear of getting injured is just, the injury rate in the National Football League is 100%.
Yes.
There isn't a player that enters the league that isn't at some point injured. So if you're Zach Wilson and you're punking out on your entire team.
But is he punking out? What if this was taken out of context?
You know what? That's an interesting point because this is the conversation that you and I are having, I think was the conversation up until about 9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
When Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show. Because now it takes a whole different twist.
Sure.
This is what Aaron Rodgers had to say about the Athletic report that said Zach Wilson did not want to start and return to the starting lineup for fear of injury.
When you use sources and try to assassinate someone's character like that report does for Zach, I have a real hard time with that. I mean, you're basically saying that this kid is quitting on the team and doesn't want to play and has given the middle finger to the organization. I have had relationships with obviously a number of different media people over the years. You get to know them, they're in the locker room, they're with beat writers. You put your name on something, then you stand behind it. You know, like I believe in this, and yes, it's okay.
You're immunized.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yep.
But
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, put your name behind it.
I think this is the first time McAfee's ever pushed back on Rodgers a little bit, using his words against him. I don't think it's character assassination.
What?
I don't. I think it's Diana Rossini and the reporters at The Athletic doing their job and reporting what they're reporting. Now, if there's the people that are maybe saying things, maybe they don't like Zach Wilson, but that's not Diana Rossini's or The Athletic's job to keep Zach Wilson's reputation clean. Or they're reporting on what they're reporting. They're not just going to flippantly put this out there because of the ramifications of Aaron Rodgers saying what he's saying.
So what if the conversation was something as simple as like Zach Wilson saying like, man, they want me to go back out there. Oof. I don't know if I can take the beating anymore. What if it was something as simple as little as that, where he wasn't saying I'm not going to do it. He was just like, ugh, man, I have to go back out there. Ugh, rough. Reluctant. That word, he didn't. The word reluctant to me was like, I'm hesitant because of everything I've gone through. Not only has he taken a beating physically, but this has to be mentally draining for him. How old is he? He's young. He's young. It's impossible for him to not be just drained from top to bottom. And the word reluctant has been taken into he doesn't want to go out there and play. And what if that wasn't it?
Well,
and it is character assassination. Look at what we're doing.
I listen, if he said it, it is what it is. If that's the comment, even if as flippant as it is, say that to Breece Hall, who's coming back from an ACL injury. Tell him to maybe he's the one that should end up sitting out because he's not doing anything. Why is Garrett Wilson out there running around running routes? Could be an all-pro receiver next year if you get Aaron Rodgers back. But he, on any play on that crappy turf at MetLife Stadium, could blow out a knee. But he's continuing to play for fear of injury.
But he
right?
would have never stopped playing, and then they benched him. And then now it's like, okay, so what? Honestly, what does he get out of going back out there? It doesn't seem like the Jets maybe want him long term. This is what it seems, right? Like it could change. So it's not like Wilson's going to go out there and show people what he's made of. He's been at best decent.
That, I take the other side of that. Even if Zach Wilson decides to not play, I don't think a team is going to say, you know what, we don't want that type of guy in there. I think that they will look at the number 2 overall pick label and say, let's take a shot at him. Or we don't believe in Nathaniel Hackett. Or the Jets were a mess. I think we can fix him.
And again, he's not saying he's not playing, right? That he's reluctant.
Rossini even named Aaron Rodgers in her report.
Yes, that he supposedly had a conversation with him, called him to try
and
to
that's
convince
where the
him.
reluctant word, I think, was also brought up as well.
Yeah, so it's not that he said, I don't want to do this. It's that he's reluctant, and how can you blame him? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. You're hesitant. I get it.
I don't get it. I don't get it. There are inherent injury issues whenever you step on the football field.
Yes.
Non-contact injuries happen all the time. To sit there and say that you're worried or you're worried about future earnings, that's the holdout portion of it, as you brought up. Now that pops back into my head. If you're holding out for a new contract, you aren't getting paid.
You aren't, but you're also letting your team down.
You're looking out for yourself at that time, but you're not getting paid. Zach Wilson is getting paid right now. So then
release him. If it's then release him, right?
If that's what they needed to do, and apparently, and the Robert Saleh truthfulness in all of this, if he's lying to me, I'm actually fine with it. I'm actually fine with it because it's the only thing that he can do to keep this crap show of a season together and try to figure out some way about it. If Zach Wilson said that and he's taking up for him and covering it up, I actually kind of understand it in a way of how ridiculous it is. But man, I just
why protect him at this point? If it was true, why would Robert Saleh feel the need to protect him? What is left there?
I think
none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense.
His job is on the line as well, I believe.
Yeah,
I think it's in the microscope. Like, you can blame the season going down the drain on Aaron Rodgers and say, we didn't have our star quarterback, give it another run. Now, if you've got this going on, this isn't the first time the locker room with the Jets has been a problem. Mike White, when he took over last year, there were players in the Jets that loved him, that they were wearing, Mike Bleepin' White T-shirts. And, what do you say to Zach Wilson in that aspect? And maybe some of those players are still on that team. And maybe that's how this story ends up getting out. But then to say that it's character assassination.
But it is in a way, because it's making you judge him that he doesn't want to play.
I trust the reporter doing their job, that the sources were vetted and legitimate sources with the story. I don't think that this level of reporting is flippant. And this is Diana Rossini from The Athletic. We've seen her for years on ESPN. Now she's doing hits with Colin on Fox. You don't put this report out there if there isn't something to it.
And I'm not saying that this was intended to assassinate his character, but it is what it's doing. I don't think that's what the intention was when the report was released. I just think that there's more details that are being left out to the story, which could be crucial to the overall picture. Again, it's not as black and white as I think it's being presented. I think there's a lot of gray, and especially just what's happened all year. It's just, this was not what the Jets were expecting. He was not supposed to play and was thrown to play immediately. He was supposed to be able to actually learn, which he has not been able to do from the minute he stepped into the NFL.
He's got 31 starts.
He's got 31 starts. His looks don't help him. His teammates must not like how good looking he is.
It was essentially they were saying, Aaron Rodgers, you keep this seat warm until your playing career is over. You can win us a Super Bowl, and then Zach Wilson is going to learn from your great tutelage. By the way, this makes Aaron Rodgers look amazingly good.
I know.
Like
this guy.
I am sticking up for my guy.
Right?
This is my guy. Did he ever address him being named in a report? In the Rossini report, I don't think that he did.
I don't think he brought up that conversation that he called him.
Yeah, because that is a big part of it.
It is.
He wants her to release and name sources. That's not
implying
happening.
that it's not him. Right, exactly.
Yeah, and just to out the people that said it, which is an interesting tactic, but one that, I'm sorry, in journalism, it's not going to happen. Diane Rossini's not going to say, hey, now this is who sorry, it's just not going to happen. But I do think that it's fully vetted and that it was a legitimate story. And it may just have been as flippant as you said.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, I don't want to, go back out there.
I'm going to have to do this again.
But you know what? We'll get a chance to hear from Zach Wilson
eventually.
On Wednesday. Yeah.
Eventually.
I mean, it's game week. They're off today. But Aaron Rodgers, again, putting himself into the story, taking up for his teammate.
And making himself look good, like you said. Oh, Aaron, he's so calculated.
But did he really address the issue? Just called it character assassination.
Yeah.
I
I
want to hear from I want to hear from Zach Wilson. That's what I want to hear from.
Yeah, we all do.
I just think it's an atrocious look for if that is the case, which I believe that it is, that Zach Wilson doesn't want to play.
Ugh.
She's Monse Bolanos. I'm Dan Beyer. Superstar Dad says Dan Beyer is wrong. Zach Wilson has been blamed for all the Jets' issues.
That's
they
right.
take Zach out and still look just as bad. If I'm Zach, why play for this poor team and further sully my reputation when it's obvious the Jets are trash with or without him? I'd want a fresh start. She's going to get his fresh start, but the Jets are going to pay him the rest of this season to be their quarterback. And whether that quarterback is to take notes on the sideline or to be there in film room or to take snaps on game day, that's what you are there to do.
Right, and he's probably going to do it. Just because he's reluctant doesn't mean he wasn't going to do it. Is it unfair that he was reluctant? I guess that's the bottom line here. Is it unfair that he feels that way? You don't want him to feel that way. You want him to just be like, yeah, I'm ready.
No, you're right about that. I would say it's okay to be reluctant, but for him to turn down the opportunity if they said, yeah, we don't want you to, or we want you to start, and he's like, yeah, not
But
for
we
me.
don't know, right, that he said no. We just know that he's reluctant.
Apprehensive. Another word that was used.
Not looking too happy about it.
There is some human nature there, but if you are asked to play, you better darn well play.
He probably will. If he doesn't, then this is different conversation. But it's just reluctant, and I don't blame him.